Sarah's hands trembled as she reviewed the time-lapse footage. Frame by frame, the elongated figure loomed over her tent, first at the foot, then suddenly at the side, then directly above her sleeping form without any frames showing movement between positions. In the final frames, the figure's impossibly long fingers reached toward the camera itself. "This isn't happening," Sarah whispered, her professional skepticism battling against undeniable evidence. She'd documented wildlife across 6 continents, learned to distinguish between actual phenomena and lens artifacts or digital glitches. This was neither. Dawn brought no relief. The desert had transformed overnight. Landmarks she'd photographed the previous day had shifted positions or vanished entirely. A mesa she used to orient herself now appeared on the opposite horizon. Her topographical maps no longer matched the terrain surrounding her. Sarah packed quickly, abandoning non-essentials to travel light. She needed to reach civilization, or at least somewhere with cell service. According to her original itinerary, she was only 8 miles from the ranger station at the desert's edge. But which direction? The sun offered no help, appearing to occupy multiple positions in the sky simultaneously, casting overlapping shadows that pointed in conflicting directions. She chose a path and walked for 3 hours, her GPS alternating between signal lost and coordinates that placed her in the Pacific Ocean. The temperature fluctuated wildly, one moment so hot her water bottle warmed to near boiling, the next so cold her breath frosted in the air. Around noon, Sarah discovered footprints, her own, from distinctive treads on her hiking boots, approaching from the opposite direction. Impossible. She followed them backward, hoping they might lead to a recognizable landmark, only to find they formed a perfect circle with no beginning or end. A flash of movement caught her attention, something dark and fluid disappearing behind a distant rock formation. Sarah raised her camera, zooming in. Through the viewfinder, she saw what appeared to be a broadcast tower where only sandstone had been visible to her naked eye. "Hello," she called out, her voice falling strangely flat, as if the air itself absorbed sound. "Is anyone there?" The reply came not as a sound, but as a vibration through the ground beneath her feet, a rhythmic pattern that resembled Morse code, but followed no. Dr. Whitaker refused to evacuate despite the disappearances. "We're scientists, not superstitious miners," he insisted as the remaining team members huddled in the command tent. "There must be a rational explanation." "Rational?" scoffed Dr. Rivera, the team's geologist. "I analyzed those shadows before Kelly vanished. They moved against light physics, James, and the footage shows you walking into that mine at midnight. Yet here you are claiming you never left your tent." "Doctored footage," Whitaker dismissed. "Someone's playing an elaborate prank." "With what equipment?" Rivera challenged. "Every digital device we brought is fried." Before Whitaker could respond, their satellite phone, dead since the previous evening, suddenly powered on. The screen displayed a single message. "Kel be low. Found something incredible. Ki li." "That settles it," Whitaker announced. "They're in the mine. Probably found a secondary entrance." "Don't even think about it," warned Dr. Harrison, the oldest member of the team. "Thomas B. Gay warned us. If you care singing, cover your ears. I'm done with indigenous fairy tales." Whitaker snapped, grabbing his equipment. "Either help me find our colleagues or start packing." Only Rivera reluctantly accompanied him to the mine entrance. The massive timber doors remained sealed, the symbols carved into them now appearing freshly cut, seeping a viscous black substance that reflected no light. "This wasn't here yesterday," Rivera whispered, reaching toward the liquid. "Don't touch it," Whitaker warned. He placed his recording equipment beside the doors. "If they're inside, we'll hear them." The digital recorder, despite having no power, activated on its own. From its speakers came Kelly's voice, distorted as if speaking through water. "The walls are soft here, Professor. They yield when pressed. I can feel something breathing on the other side." Martin's voice followed. "The minerals here aren't from Earth. The crystalline structures. It's like they're encoding information. Billions of terabytes. It's some kind of library or database." Kelly again. There's someone coming through now. They say they've been waiting for humans advanced enough to understand what they're offering. The knowledge goes both ways, Professor. They want to learn about us too. The recording abruptly cut to sounds that made both men recoil. Wait, sliding noises interspersed with what might have been speech, but followed no phonetic patterns recognizable as language. Some kind of audio contamination, Whitaker suggested, his scientific certainty wavering. The noise intensified, resolving into something that resembled Kelly's voice, but speaking in impossible ways. Words formed backward, syllables overlapping, as if multiple versions of her were speaking simultaneously from different timeframes. Reality is porous here, her voice explained through the distortion. Shadow mathematics, nonlinear time. They've been studying us since the first miners broke through, collecting samples. A new voice interrupted, Ezekiel Harris, his 1887 journal entries suddenly given voice. They wear our faces when they want to walk in daylight. They're learning to mimic us. God forgive what we've unleashed. Rivera backed away from the mine entrance. We need to leave. Now. As if in response, the ground trembled. Hairline fractures spread across the desert floor, forming the same symbols carved into the mine doors. From these cracks emerged thin wisps of black smoke that moved with deliberate purpose, coalescing into humanoid shapes. James! Rivera screamed as one of the shakes engulfed him. His body went rigid, then relaxed. When he turned back to Whitaker, Rivera's eyes had changed, the pupils elongated vertically like a snake's, the irises displaying shifting geometric patterns. You should join us below, Professor, Rivera said, his voice now layered with others. Kelly and Martin have learned so much. The barrier works both ways, you see. We've been reaching across for centuries, but only in places where reality wears thin. Rivera's hand closed around Whitaker's wrist with unnatural strength. Time moves differently below. A century of study can pass in moments. Your colleagues have already given us centuries of data. What are you? Whitaker managed to ask. Rivera's face split into a too-wide smile that extended beyond the natural corners of his mouth. We are the archivists. We collect experiences across realities. And you, Professor Whitaker, with your documented skepticism and scientific rigor, are a perfect addition to our catalog. Behind them, with a sound like tearing fabric, the mine doors began to open inward. The Las Vegas gas station attendant didn't look up as Mark paid for their fuel. His name tag read Mark, the same as his own. One of those coincidences that wouldn't normally register, but now sent ice through his veins. Everything okay with you folks? The attendant finally asked, his voice oddly familiar. You look like you've seen a ghost. We're fine, Ellie answered quickly, pulling Mark toward the door. Just tired from driving all night. Outside, Ellie's hands trembled as she showed Mark her phone. Look at this. The screen displayed their location history, a perfect circle around Las Vegas, repeating the same loop 3 times despite their memories of a straight-line drive on Highway 157B. How is this possible? Mark whispered. And the urn. What happened to Emily's ashes? Ellie's eyes hardened. We need to report this. There's a police station 2 blocks from here. The officer who took their statement, a heavised man with thinning hair and skeptical eyes, barely concealed his disbelief as they described the vanishing highway and the emptied urn. His fingers hovered over the number for psychiatric services. Look, he finally said, we get tourists all the time who lose track on desert highways. The heat plays tricks. As for your daughter's remains, he cleared his throat uncomfortably. People sometimes do impulsive things when grieving. You think we scattered her ashes and forgot? Ellie's voice rose. That we both hallucinated the same exact. Forget it, Mark interrupted, pulling her away. He doesn't believe us. Back in their SUV, Mark attempted to navigate back to I-15, but every turn led them down unfamiliar streets that all somehow connected back to the same gas station. After the 3rd loop, Ellie noticed something disturbing about the handprint on their rear window. It was growing larger, as if the child's hand was pressing harder from inside. We need to clean that off, she said, reaching for a water bottle. Don't. Mark grabbed her wrist. What if it's Emily? What if somehow she's trying to communicate? Ellie stared at her husband, alarmed by the desperate hope in his eyes. Mark, our daughter is gone. Whatever this is, it's not her. Then explain the empty urn. Explain why that family in the truck had our faces. Their argument was interrupted by the SUV's radio suddenly turning on by itself, tuning to a station broadcasting nothing but static and a faint child's laughter. The GPS screen flickered to life, displaying a new route, one leading back to Highway 157B. No way, Ellie said firmly. We're not going back there. What choice do we have? Mark gestured at the streets around them. We've been driving in circles for hours. The decision was made for them when the SUV's engine started on its own, the steering wheel turning inexorably toward the highway on-ramp. Ellie frantically tried to override it, but the controls were unresponsive. Pull the emergency brake, she shouted. Mark yanked the brake, but the vehicle continued accelerating smoothly onto the highway. Through the windshield, they watched the Welcome to Las Vegas sign recede in the distance as Highway 157B stretched before them once again. Only now, it was lined with identical turquoise Chevrolet pickups, parked at regular intervals along both shoulders, each containing a family staring straight ahead. Oh God, Ellie whispered as they passed the first truck. Inside were carbon copies of themselves with Emily alive between them. The child turned to watch them pass, her small hand raised in greeting, a perfect match to the handprint on their window. As they passed the second truck, they saw themselves again, but older, faces gaunt, eyes hollow. No child between them. In the third truck, only Emily sat behind the wheel, her feet unable to reach the pedals, her face aged to adolescence though she had died at 3. They're showing us possibilities, Mark realized. Different versions of us from different. The radio interrupted with a burst of clarity, a child's voice cutting through the static. Mummy, Daddy, you have to choose one. That's how the highway works. You pick a reality and stay there. As the message ended, the vehicle's systems shut down completely, coasting to a stop precisely between two of the trucks. Ahead, the highway split into dozens of branching paths, each one shimmering with a subtly different quality of light. Behind them, all the trucks started their engines simultaneously. The entities that had once been human closed their circle around Elena. Their bodies flickered like bad television reception, occasionally revealing glimpses of something else behind the human facades, geometries that existed in more dimensions than her brain could process. You still think you're studying us, Miguel said, voice harmonizing with the others. Even now, the psychologist in you is categorizing, analyzing, trying to fit this into frameworks your science can explain. Elena backed away, but the stone circle had contracted, the standing stones now creating a tight perimeter with no gaps to escape through. What happened to you, Miguel? She asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. What did the station do to you? It didn't do anything asterisk to asterisk me, he replied. It revealed what I already was, what we all were. He gestured to the others. Some humans are born with perception, tuned to frequencies others can't detect. The photographer saw light others couldn't. The couple perceived time differently. The scientists measured what shouldn't exist. I heard broadcasts between realities. The woman with the camera stepped forward, her movements jerky as if she existed at a different frame rate. We're not prisoners, she said, her mouth moving out of sync with her words. We're translators, interpreters between states of being. The ancients understood, added one of the researchers, black dust occasionally falling from his lips as he spoke. They built markers at the thin places, the stone circles, the medicine wheels, the ley lines. Modern humans bulldozed them, built highways over them, drilled through them searching for minerals. The barriers weakened. Elena noticed something disturbing. The circle of entities was slowly merging into a single consciousness. Their edges blurred together, thoughts completing across different bodies, movements synchronized to an unhenned rhythm. Your research on dissociative states brought you close to understanding, Mikkel continued. The human mind compartmentalizes to protect itself from realities it cannot process. When you help patients reintegrate their traumatic memories, you're doing on an individual scale what we do across realities. The ground beneath Elena shifted, becoming transparent like smoky glass. Below, she could see vast machinery, not mechanical but organic, pulsing with energy that flowed through channels connecting to the standing stones. "What you're seeing is the substrate," explained the Rodriguez woman, her husband completing her sentence. "The machinery beneath consensus reality. It's breaking down," added their child of sand. "Realities are bleeding together. The boundaries need maintenance." Elena's research journal levitated from her pocket, pages flipping open to reveal that her handwriting had already begun to transform, becoming a hybrid of all those gathered in the circle. The final page contained the 5 coordinates that would mark the next weak points in reality's fabric. "You've already begun the transition," Miguel said gently. "Your perceptions were always calibrated to sense what others couldn't. Why do you think you became a psychologist who specializes in helping people distinguish between reality and delusion? You've been training for this your entire career." Elena felt her identity beginning to dissolve at the edges, memories that weren't hers seeping in, the sensation of taking photographs in the 1960s, the experience of mining silver in 1887, the feeling of driving endless highways that folded back on themselves. "What happens if I refuse?" she asked, clinging to her sense of self. "You can't unknow what you've seen," the photographer replied. "Return to your world, and you'll perceive all the fractures, all the places where realities overlap. You'll try to convince others, show them your evidence, your perfect logical arguments. They'll diagnose you, medicate you, institutionalize you. Your perception is both gift and curse." Or, Miguel offered, extending his hand, which partially passed through solid matter, "You can embrace what you truly are. Help us repair the boundaries. Use your understanding of human consciousness to strengthen the consensual reality most humans need to function." The circle tightened further, the entities now barely distinguishable from one another, their collective voice resonating through Elena's bones. "The choice looks like sacrifice from one perspective, transcendence from another. Either way, Elena Vasquez, as you've known her, ends tonight. The only question is whether her knowledge and perception serve a greater purpose or waste away in a psychiatric facility." Above them, the stars arranged themselves into a countdown, the desert wind carrying whispers from adjacent realities, millions of voices speaking truths humans were never meant to comprehend. Elena reached out her hand. Miguel stumbled backward, his shoulder blades hitting the wall of photographs. Several frames crashed to the floor, their glass shattering to reveal that the photos weren't printed on paper, but on some metallic material with an oily, shifting surface. The images themselves began to move like short video clips, each visitor's expressions transforming from confusion to terror to acceptance in endless loops. "No," Miguel whispered. "This isn't happening." The voice from the speakers, his voice, continued reciting coordinates, adding personal details about the next traveler they expected. "Divorced father of 2. Carries his daughter's ballet slipper in his glove compartment for luck. Still feels phantom pain in the left ring finger where his wedding band used to be." Miguel lunged for the door, but it no longer opened to the outside desert. Instead, it revealed a long hallway lined with radio equipment from different eras, crystal sets from the 1920s, vacuum tube receivers from the 1940s, transistor radios from the 1960s, all operating simultaneously, tuned to different broadcasts from across time. "Each receiver is tuned to a different reality," explained a voice behind him. Miguel spun to find a woman in a 1970s KDST uniform, her features eerily similar to his mother's, but wrong in subtle ways. Eyes too wide, teeth too numerous when she smiled. "Who are you?" Miguel demanded. "I'm the station manager," she replied with his mother's voice. "Or at least, that's the form most accessible to your consciousness. We've had many names throughout human history. Hermes, Mercury, Iris, Legba, messengers between worlds. What do you want from me?" "From you? Nothing you haven't already given." She gestured toward the reel-to-reel, still broadcasting in his voice. "Your transmission began the moment you entered our radius. Reality is largely consensus, Miguel Sanchez. What most humans perceive as real is merely the dominant broadcast, the station with the strongest signal." She guided him down the hallway, past doors that opened onto impossible vistas, prehistoric landscapes, futuristic cityscapes, and places where physics seemed optional, waterfalls flowing upward, geometric structures that hurt his eyes to look upon. We maintain the boundaries between neighboring realities, she continued. Occasionally, signals bleed through, what you might call hauntings, miracles, or UFO sightings. But lately, the frequencies are destabilizing. Too many humans have stopped truly listening, stopped truly seeing. The consensus reality weakens. They reached a circular room containing nothing but an ancient microphone on a stand. Behind it stood dozens of figures, some human, others merely human adjacent, with proportions and features that triggered Miguel's fight-or-flight response. You recognized our transmission when others drove past, the station manager said. You heard what others couldn't because you've always been sensitive to the frequencies, like your mother was. My mother was a house cleaner, Miguel protested. She had nothing to do with radio. Really? The manager handed him a photograph, his mother at 25, standing in this very room, speaking into the microphone. Before you were born, she was one of our most dedicated broadcasters. She helped maintain the boundaries. But then she met your father and chose his reality instead. Miguel studied the photograph, noticing the date stamp, June 8, 1972, exactly 9 months before his birth. She never truly belonged to your world, the manager continued. Like you, she heard transmissions others couldn't. You called it her intuition. But crossing between realities exacts a toll. The cancer that took her was the price of choosing your world over ours. The microphone hummed, drawing Miguel forward despite his resistance. You have a choice your mother never fully embraced, the manager said. Return to a world where you'll gradually lose your ability to perceive the broadcast until you're as blind and deaf as most humans, or take your rightful place as a transmitter, helping maintain the boundaries between worlds. Behind the microphone, one of the figures stepped forward, a man with Miguel's face, but decades older, with eyes that had seen beyond normal human perception. I've held this frequency for 50 years, the older Miguel said. I'm tired. The boundaries need a new voice, or everything begins to bleed together. The microphone beckoned, glowing with internal light.